Hello, my lovelies. Welcome to the Menorca Conscious Group. I'm Tjoni from Inspiral Out Loud, and this is Colin.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much,
Welcome
Tjoni.
to your show.
Right. Well, welcome to our show. We're bouncing between Czech Republic and Egypt. That's not bad distance, is it?
Yeah. How far is it? I've got no idea. I've never walked there or swum.
No, I ain't got a.
Anyway, it's far away.
I would say about 3,000 kilometers, maybe something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe by flight less. Yeah.
Amazing.
So hello, everybody. Just going to say hello to everybody. Yeah, that'll do me. I'm finished.
You finished? All right. Good night. So, Happy New Year. Welcome to the new year. And so our theme for today is New Year, New Paradigm. And so it feels like a good time to be chatting about whatever this new realm is that we're shifting into and how to best navigate it. And then maybe what do we want to create on the other side of that shift? What are we heading into? So what do you think, Colin? How are you staying really nice and current and centered and balanced as we're moving into whatever it is that we're even moving into?
Light. I always use light. I always use the energy of light, not just the concept and the thought of it. But Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I always use light. I breathe in light. I build the light up inside, and I use it as almost like a stabilizer to this massive energy is what we all are. And that just gives me a really adaptable and flexible but quiet and still sense of equilibrium, if that makes sense. So it's like a mechanism which I've always used energetically. It's always, as we know, everything is about energies. So I use that particular energy of light in virtually everything as I think and speak, etc. Physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. So that's the core for me is the light. And if I can get into the light of stillness, in that most profound part, then that's the game changer. So, and I should say when I get into it, because it's familiar to me to be in that stillness of light. So, and then in that, as the winds of change blow, it gives me a sense of flexibility without getting completely floored, in one go, like something hits you and boom, you're down. I always find light and breathing in light and having that stillness, you can get anything thrown at you, anything energetically. And we know a lot of things are getting thrown at us at the minute energetically on many levels. So that's the stabilizer for me. So what about yourself? What do you use?
It's quite funny, actually. I feel like I used almost exactly the polar opposite of it. And because I guess like I spent so many years actually just dwelling in the shadows in just extreme difficulty and challenge through illness and homelessness and all of that kind of stuff. And that challenge actually brought me to a point of stillness because, I hit a point where I would just night after night just think, wow, my body can't take this anymore. There's no way my body can possibly survive this anymore. And so I just be in that and just go, okay, cool. Well, I'll clean up my van, make sure there's, no dirty underpants on the floor. Like just make sure everything's nice and clean. So if somebody finds me in like 5 days, that everything's neat. And so I just got into that space of acceptance in the darkness and holding myself in that like you would a child. And from that state of acceptance, really nothing's been able to shred me since. And so any any extreme discomfort, physical, mental, emotional, sound, like all of the different things, whatever the experience is that it creates in my body, just fully inhabiting that and internally holding myself within that, it somehow allows things to just kind of lose their grip. So that's part of it, of just being in the muck, as I like to say, and not dwelling there for ridiculous amounts of time in what could potentially be an addictive a trauma kind of cycle, but more just accepting it until it eases. And that's been the gem of the last kind of 15 years of oddities. And the other part of it is just really being, my friend calls it being a walking question mark, of just really questioning everything and not believing anything, accept everything and believe nothing. And so I'm constantly questioning all of my own senses. So not just on an information scale or a physical information scale, but also just internally, and just constantly just dissecting things and wondering if things are true or not, wondering if even the physicality around us is real or not, constantly questioning the nature of everything, so that then when things come up that really challenge what we've known previously to be true, that we can still maintain some kind of center as best as possible. So just maintaining the mystery, I guess.
Interesting. I think you've said a few points. I think one of them, Tjoni, was acceptance. Funny enough, we went to we held a New Year's Eve meeting, Zoom online on Zoom, and we didn't want to do the normal, okay, we'll just put something on for the sake of putting it on and just, everybody be there. And we got inspired to put on a title of predictions, making so the whole evening on New Year's Eve, for everybody what joined us, everything was about predictions, making the predictions, if they'd made previous predictions in 23, if any have come true in 2024, and what predictions everybody had kind of experienced, or if they're experiencing any for 2025 and beyond. And we thought, so we just spent the whole night discussing predictions and then going off on a tangent on, some occasions. And it was in that evening where one of our friends had said she had used, beautiful mind, she said she had used a word, she'd picked a word for 2024, which was brave. And she found out that it was applicable to 2024. And then she chose another word. And I thought, this is quite interesting, this. Rather than making New Year's resolutions, I'm going to do this, I'm going to stop that, etc. And I thought to myself, do you know what? Actually, acceptance might be a key word for 2025, because I think we're going to encounter quite a bumpy ride at a certain point, definitely. And I think we're all, maybe humanity itself, or some parts of humanity, because of that event, are going to need a significant vibration of acceptance within themselves, and really step inside themselves into that sense of acceptance, not just acceptance of who we are and acceptance of others on a general level, but on a quite a deep level. And then I'm thinking, as you was talking, you was reminding me of that being centered and being aligned and being in alignment. And I think that might be a key word, alignment, for people. Bring themselves and their energies and their mind into their own sense of alignment, according to their energies, according to their intuition, and according to their psyche, so to speak, their own consciousness. Okay, because I think we have a tendency, when we step out of our own alignment, that's when everything becomes wobbly and disturbed, and that's when the trouble starts. But as soon as we bring ourselves back to that center and we align our light, so to speak, then that peace and that security and that safe energy is there. So really interesting, because I think we've got this, like you say, we've got this new paradigm coming up, and how are we going to navigate it? Interesting things, isn't it? Very.
It is, and I just came up with something to touch on actually, but I think it's going to be really important because, you know, we chatted briefly just before we started about enabling, and I'd love to talk about that enabling and getting out of this poverty struggle-based kind of mindset. But actually, before we get there, something else is quite strong in the air for me at the moment, and talking about acceptance. And that is, you know, we know that we're in a Depop kind of agenda, and the manifestation of that has really started to show itself. And I ended up on just going through my connections on Facebook at New Year's Eve, and I just went, wow, so many people have actually left in the last year, and that's going to get more and more. And so we need to kind of prepare ourselves for that, because we need to be able to keep our vibrations up in order to be able to keep enabling each other, and, you know, really creating a nice strong mycelium for us to be able to thrive as we're creating different structures for us to operate with. But at the same time, we're going to need to give ourselves the space to be able to see all the rest of the stuff that's happening in the world, and give ourselves a place for that. So, you know, that's to me, where dwelling in the shadows and in the dark corners is really important, because we need to give ourselves the time to grieve for all of those souls, and so we can make the space. We'll give them our energy and our love first, but then also give ourselves the space and the mental clarity to be able to go, okay, now we need to keep moving, and we need to keep growing, and we need to keep generating, because we're not helping them by letting ourselves fall.
Totally agree.
So that I feel is going to be really one of the key aspects in being able to stay on a strong trajectory, is just to be ready for that bit, because that aspect is quite shocking. And even though we've been expecting it for years now, it's still, as it's unfolding, it just is shocking. And we can be, you know, our spiritual warrior selves, but we're still fragile human psyches with fragile human hearts. So we need to be gentle on ourselves too.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree, Tony. I think my understanding is, sorry, in the coming short period of time, which, to put a figure on it, probably from this point over the next 3 to 5 years, we already know there's many souls taking place. They're taking their transition at the moment off the planet, in all areas, in all walks of life, family, friends, etc. And we know those who we don't even know of. Looking at the conflicts around the world, I'm not going to name any of them, but more than just the two what's in the headlines, there's a lot more, and therefore there's so many souls taking their transition at the minute as we're talking. I mean, this is, for me, sometimes when the penny drops and we go, as we're talking, you think, well, this is happening on our world, this is happening on our planet right now, and we're talking about conditions and circumstances where people are taking their transition. We can jump on that sense of acceptance and go, it is what it is, that's fine. But there's something what I believe touches almost the core of our soul, because of that interconnectedness what we have to every other soul in this world. And I am of the impression that we're probably going to witness a lot more, many countless souls take their transition within the next 3 years. How many this year? I haven't got a clue, but I think there might be a significant number again. And I totally agree with what you're saying. It's like we've got to pay homage to those souls with that profound respect, and at the same time prevent ourselves from dipping, so we don't go into that pit of sorrow and sadness. Pay our respects, have a sense of celebration in a way for some of them, anyway. At least that they've led whatever life they could up to this moment according to the plan. But at the same time, it's like, okay, exactly what you've said, Tony. It's like that almost ignites a new flame, or it ignites the flame and the fire, what's already burning, and kind of makes it stronger and go, right, we're more determined now to keep going and achieve what we've come to achieve as far as this ascension and shift into that new space or into that new reality is concerned. And when we reach this point of the conversation, this for me is when it starts getting very fascinating. It's kind of like I've always had this deep interest and intrigue about these moments in these conversations, because once that flame is really sparked up, and of the soul, everybody's soul, this concept of light warriors, that's gone. That's out the window. There's something. It's on a different level completely, because I think that fire in all of us is going. We are going to succeed with, phenomenal determination, and nothing is going to grind us down or stop us, because we need to succeed in that task we've come to do. And already as I'm speaking, it's like I can feel the flames of it flickering away, burning. It's like, no, we aren't stopping. Okay. People can take their transition, other souls can take their transition. Ours will come when it's ready. But at the moment, as we're going forward, it's like we're going to be indestructible. That sounds absolutely ridiculous, but that's because I believe the soul and the light of our soul is literally indestructible. And while we can keep that going and create those new aspects in this world, then we've done something for those what have taken the transition and what will take the transition in the short period, what's ahead of us all. So there's this, I don't know, there's this wonderful energy, really, and I don't want to use the word exciting, because I don't think it can be exciting in one way, but on another level, it's not exciting when people are losing their lives on the planet and where they are. So I always keep that, again, I go back to the word equilibrium. I keep that sense of equilibrium, and I'm motivated and driven by the suffering and by the transitions of other souls, especially the ones what have been. Well, no, I've just got to. I'll leave it at that, because then it'll start sounding as if I'm judgmental, but so I don't want to come across in that way. Yeah, I don't know. You just seem to have took something there, Tony.
Well, I mean, there's an interesting balance there as well, because when you're looking at the micro and the macro, from the huge scale looking down, it's like, okay, we're moving into a transition, and all change is destructive. Like, that's what it is. And so there's that kind of element of the over picture of everything, but then on the ground in the trenches, surrounded by the people that we love, okay. So we've got to kind of balance those two. Otherwise, we lose our humanity.
Yeah.
If we just stay kind of sort of, up here and having this, broad spiritual perspective and eagle's eye view on everything, it's like, okay, that's great to be able to help us see everything in a particular context and maintain enough clarity of vision to keep channeling ourselves forward in the betterment of everything as much as we possibly can. But then we do need to keep our eyes open and our hearts open to what's happening around us, and so we can send it our love without getting drowned by it.
Yes. Yeah. So again,
we need to do that, right?
This is what it's about, isn't it? It's riding the waves constantly. I always it's a big thing for me with the waves. I always think the way to ride the waves is to maintain some sense of stability through the middle. As our mind ascends and descends, consciousness rises and then drops, while the peaks and troughs of the waves are occurring. And it's like the mind is riding those waves. Funny enough, in Buddhism, they call it the mental continuum. I describe it as a wave and the consciousness, a particle of consciousness riding those waves. And if we maintain that kind of middle way through the wave, through in the middle of the peak and the trough, then we're staying relatively stable, and we can go on the high, and we can attain that clarity and that sense of, you know, ascending up the spiral and expanding, so to speak. And at the same time, when the wave goes on a dip, we're less affected, or we're not so deeply affected, because we've got that sense of equilibrium on the middle. And what I've always witnessed for a long time is many people will just ride the wave, and they'll go on this high, or they'll come crashing down on the dip. And they'll go, yes, on the high, they're like celebrating, and everything's wonderful, and the fireworks are going off, etc. And then they go on this dip, and they go, what's happening to me? Oof. And they've contracted, everything's coming heavy and dense around them. And then the wave passes, and then they gradually come up again. So I've always had this, and I can only call them spiritual teachings. The spiritual teachings for me is we've got to walk along that middle plane, because we can then go on the highs and find the clarity. The sense of intuition is far greater and clearer. And then when we go on the dips, we're not so affected by that density in that, if you like, in the abyss, at the bottom of the abyss, so to speak. So it's really, and having that alignment keeps us in tune with all those frequencies of however in the way you've just described it, because we can't stay on that high, and say, I'm above all this, but it's like, well, you may as well not be on the planet then. So, and it's like, okay, well, I'm too low. It's like, okay, come on, let's get you up and help you get out of it. So I think this is where we're helping each other with all the different facets of knowledge and truth, what every soul on the planet is reflecting to each other. We're finding a way through this transition, through to the new reality, as best as we possibly can. But the key for me is we need each other, and we need those reflections from each other to help us all.
Yeah, for sure. Something else that's been coming through for me a lot lately too is when I was talking about the questioning our internal worlds as well as the external, is also so many of the spiritual based tools based on various theologies and wellness practices and things like that, and finding a balance there as well, because so many of those constructs are still held within a very small cage. And even things like a lot of elements of yoga and various religious and spiritual practices and so on, they're still very, very held and constricted, and some of them have been manipulated and inverted, and other structures were just created out of that inversion in the first place. But then at the same time, if we're okay, I'm thinking, for instance, of something like Kundalini yoga, for example. Yeah. That for me I find incredibly helpful, because it's helping my body to energize itself, to clear itself out and things like that. But then even those kind of structures are in a very small little container. Yeah. And even things like various maps that we have of the body, like chakra systems and things like that. There's a lot of people now that are working very deeply to start undoing those kinds of constructs and clearing those, because they say that those are also keeping us bound in various loops and cycles of enslavement. And so we need to find out all of those bits for ourselves, because so many of those things have been you know, kind of like a watermark for our inner world, and kind of like a compass. And, you know, to me, being able to just release the compass and just really just be hanging out in the abyss without knowing which direction you're at, without having any mental constructs of what we're actually in.
Yeah.
But without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you know. So just being able to turn over everything with a fresh mind and just considering, you know, is this really useful and is it expansive for me, or is it keeping me held in a bind? And I've mentioned in one of our previous chats, you know, about this idea that at some point during whatever this flip is, that some parts of our sensorial organs are going to switch on, they're going to come online. And if our construct of things is too tightly bound in various theological beliefs and structures, we might miss something big.
Yeah. Yeah.
So turn over every single pebble.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I just love what you've just said and how you just described it. I mean, it jolted a thought, an image, a visual image in my awareness. What you was just describing, and I totally agree, because it's, for me, change is constant, and it's not that it's a intellectualized particle of thought what's going around in my head. It's the embodiment of those words, and living them every day and accepting that's the system of the cosmos, so to speak. So they're not just changes constant. It's not just words. This is the true kind of energy inside all of us, because we know we're changing all the time anyway. We reduce it back into the center of ourselves. Then we can just go, okay, this is changing constantly. You know, even moving your hand or talking, that's change. You know, and then you go deeper and deeper. So when we come across all these aspects, what's kind of unfolded and ripened on the planet regarding, I call them regarding spiritual matters. Doesn't matter what label they're given, it's somehow they're connected to a spiritual mind or spirituality, but it basically it's to do with consciousness and awareness for me. And while you was talking, it was like I could see that the awakening symbolizes the Christmas morning, waking up on Christmas morning. And you're standing in the room and there's the Christmas tree there and there's the presents all wrapped up and boxed up around the Christmas tree. And everything what we're seeing at the moment and utilizing immediately after the mind has just expanded slightly, or the psyche, a door in the psyche is opened, and we call it an awakening. We go to the first Christmas present and it's a box. And in the box, and although the tree is there and there's several other presents and some of the boxes may be bigger, we go to the box and we open the box, and in that box, there's an explosion of all these wonderful gifts and abilities of Kundalini yoga itself, mediumship, interpretation of dreams, Reiki, you know, whatever we use across the board, channeling, etc. They're in this box. They're just like, wow, look at all this lot. And we're kind of like, almost like that child testing each one of them, whichever one kind of reflects to us. And I love the fact that everybody on the planet is grabbing hold of this. They're embracing the one what intuitively pulls them and draws them and magnetizes them. And that gives us that diversity of everything. But they're all contained in that box. They all come out of that one box. And I think as this change unfolds and as this shift unfolds and we expand further and further, we then start looking, okay, we're moving from the third to the fourth and the fifth, and we're moving towards these other dimensions, expanding into them. The big boxes are going to be open. We're going to go, okay, we've got them. Let's have a look what's in these other boxes now. And what's in those boxes is what's in those other dimensions we've yet to really fully expand into. And with respect, you know, people would say, well, I'm in tune with the 7th D and the 12th D and all this lot. You know, it's like, well, is your feet on the ground? Do you understand what's really going on here in that expanse of everything? And that's not knocking anybody, because that's where they are and I accept it. But for me, and it's personal to me, we have this capacity and ability to transcend through all the dimensions, through all the frequencies, quite easily, as far as my experiences on understanding this concept. And we've got to use the mind like a lift. So we feel, in a sense, all those frequencies of what's going on, and yet ultimately recognize that in the vastness of the cosmos, we still haven't really truly understood and identified by far who and what we actually are, and who and what is what's taking place. So we're kind of just meandering and navigating our way through it. And in that is, we've opened that first Christmas present. We're seeing all these gifts, and we're trying to help each other. We're trying to work with those gifts or abilities, if we call them of that name. Again, we're using terms. And that's bringing us together. That's bringing the collective together in the most beautiful, magical way for me. But I don't think for me, we haven't even started yet. You know, even though sorry.
But I think also within that is also being able to look at all of those gifts and say, okay, well, who's giving the present? And why?
Yeah.
Because if there's a whole lot of other apparent gifts there to be had that are going to take us closer to understanding the true nature of what we are and what we're capable of, then it's very easy to get caught up in the attachment to the various bliss states, you know, the beautiful psychedelic kind of experiences, the, you know, gorgeous, you know, interminglings with various entities, whatever they are. Like these things can also be a trap. So it's not to say that they are, but they can be. So again, to not throw everything out, but just be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared to flip the thing over and see the other face of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Good point.
We might need to let go of a lot.
Pardon?
We might need to.
Yeah, I think, to be quite honest, and I agree with that word you've used, attachment. We this is interesting, this, because it's, respectfully speaking, let's say we've got a 3D mind, a 3D perception of understanding before we have some kind of, you know, awakening, or, you know, the psyche expands. Okay, up to that point, and generally speaking, the mind is waking and functioning similar to everybody else's in that 3D reality. So in that 3D reality, we know there's a massive attachment taking place. We're attached to objects, people, etc. Funny enough, we've just done a letting go weekend for, I think it was half a day, and this came up. We were talking about attachment and how we get attached mentally, emotionally, you know, on different frequencies, and just how strong that attachment can be. And what we witness is, well, what I'm witnessing is an overlap of the attachment from the 3D perception going into the awakening process when somebody's awakened. So they're still having to let go of that sense of attachment, not just from their previous kind of incarnation in this life, or the person who there was before the awakening. They've also got to be very cautious not to get attached to the new stuff, exactly what you just said. And this is why I think it's so relevant. Now, I put attachment to frequencies. There's frequencies of attachment. So we know, let's say we say it's for love outside of ourselves, and we find that law, what we think, and we get attached to it, there's a strong pull, and then we're grasping all of it so tight, when it leaves, it's painful, and we suffer. As a result, not of the person, but as a result of our grasping and attachment to that soul, to that person, thinking that was going on. Well, you're supposed to make me happy. That didn't work, did it? Okay, I'm left in bits and in pain on the floor. Okay, it's like, yes, because you've done it. So that sense of attachment, where I understand in that respect, when I see it's creeping into the time after the awakening for people, for a lot of people, I think that's really important. It's kind of like, and I think this is where the shadow work and the healing and all those sort of aspects, the beautiful aspects, really come into play. Because only by having non-attachment and by being detached can we then say, okay, all these aspects, what we're seeing now, all these new toys and gleaming and glittering things, we still have to use a certain degree of discernment, because on some occasions when we do flip the other side, and this has been confirmed on numerous occasions, when that other side has been flipped over, it isn't, what's on that side hasn't been what the individual thought it was. They've been under the false impression, and therefore they've been under the delusions that what they thought was true is not true. It's incorrect. And you've just froze for a moment, Tony. So I think I'm going to keep talking about it. Oh, she's back. Well, we're back. Okay, Tony.
Oh, good. We still exist.
Yes.
But we can pretty much switch the word attachment to addiction, and it's pretty much the same thing. And so if you're in that state, there's no empowerment in it. You might think it's healthy, but if you're wanting and feeling less than whole for the lack of someone or something, then you've got yourself in a bind. And I mean, I still have myself in those binds. I'm not talking as somebody who was that. It's like, yeah, we're still human and we're still working through it. But it's really great to just acknowledge what our relationships to these various things are. And the same goes for health and fitness. I mean, you know, there's a term gym junkies, and there's medicine junkies, and there's meditation junkies. Like, you know, you can bind yourself to anything.
This is, I think this is such a relevant point at this moment in time. We've got to have a sense of, I mean, for me, detachment is up there. Detachment is one of the big ones. And I don't mean detachment, because often when people use the word detachment, they can think it's this cold, calculating, logical side of the mind. And I don't mean in that response, in that respect. We can abide, so to speak. We can abide in a frequency of detachment within us. We can vibrate at that frequency of detachment. And we can still, rather than be far off and removed from it, mentally, emotionally, there's a frequency of detachment where we're actually in the center point of any situation, where we can actually see the wood and the trees at the same time. There's a stunning sense of detachment, and it doesn't suffer falls gladly. It doesn't show any. It detects any aspect what's taking place. Exactly what you said. It's like questioning everything. That sense of detachment questions every single thing, even to the point where we go, is having this conversation with Tony correct at this moment in time? You know, and it's like, so we go, of course it is. And if it isn't, then we have to accept that it is. And if we start going too far with it, then you go, wow, hang on, okay, we can question everything. But then we go, are we at the point of questioning and overanalyzing to such a degree that everything then turns into chaos, what we thought was about quite clear and meaningful and sane to us? I think we're in that moment where there's such a transition and crossover, that we need that alignment. We need that, I think you was referring to earlier. We need that retreat, that time of retreat to ourselves, because we can be overloaded and bombarded with the external and other aspects, not just external.
Yeah, and there's two aspects. One is that if we're too attached to something, it does put blinkers on. And so if information is coming in or experiences are coming in that are contradicting something that has brought us apparent wellness, comfort, pleasure, whatever it is, if we're too bound up in needing the security, the safety, the familiarity of that thing, we might just push truth, an actual truth away in favor of what is comfortable for that, comfortable. And so, you know, it's still keeping us quite bound. We're going to need to look to shed really quite a lot. The other aspect to it as well is to, again, go slowly, because if we just throw everything away and we're just left like, you know, off center, like a spinning top that's wobbling and about to fall over, well, in that state of confusion, part of, you know, for instance, the whole deep state agenda is to keep us in a perpetual state of confusion, because that's how people are easily controlled and manipulated. So we need to go gentle, and just like you don't go detoxing your body too quickly or you make yourself very sick. We go bit by bit and we adjust. And I think it's the same for, you know, more of a spiritual detox, if you like, and a mental and emotional detox. We need to do it bit by bit so we can maintain our center. Yeah. Otherwise, we leave ourselves very vulnerable.
I think alongside that, or with that, Tony, what I'm seeing and what I've seen for a long time is this question, well, why can't things just be sorted out here and now? You know, and it's like, it can't. It's got to be a gentle process. The cosmos has got to take its own fluid time to do whatever it's doing, or its own motion. And because we're here undergoing this process and this change, there is a big wish, and I understand it in a lot of people. Why is this happening? Why isn't that stopped? Why is that happening? Why isn't that stopped? You know, it should have been stopped yesterday, you know. And it's like, well, it can only come from all of us. It can only come from us. And if we're not ready, that will continue. And I think that perfectly aligns, I think, with what you were saying. We've got to do it bit by bit, which means we've got to peel the layers off one at a time, or maybe 2 or 3 at a time, whichever way it goes, and leave it to nature. And I think this is the big one, or one of the big ones, where that need to control in the individual's mind can be so powerful that they can't actually see it. It's overrode their own sense of clarity. And getting those layers out of the way first is really so important. And because then we go, okay, I'm giving up control, and I'm just going to be and try and sense the vibrations and harmony of nature itself, and be in tune with nature. That for me is a phenomenal state of mind, because when something ripens in during that way of thinking, that way of being, as things ripen, there's a beautiful, gentle sense of acceptance that nature has done this, and this has done this, and this is happening, that, and you just accept it. It's okay. And from that center point, we do what we think is best according to nature for ourselves, and in that be of benefit to all sentient beings, wherever and whenever we can be. So this is opening some doors. It's beautiful. I'm just wondering whether we should see if there's any questions. I think Lynn had one earlier. What do you think? Yeah. Where does the time go as well?
All right. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
I agree that there are big changes coming. I believe and always will that the worker spirit is #1 in my life, but I feel something else is coming in behind it. I'm slowly being shown things that make a lot of sense to what has been happening throughout my life. Beautiful.
Thank you, Lynn. Big changes here. Yeah.
Your turn, Colin.
Ria, hi Ria. Lovely to see. Thanks for joining us. The fall comes with not integrating the high into our daily life and relation. Oh, okay. Yeah. The fall comes with not integrating the high into our daily life and relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so it. Pardon?
So we need them both. Sorry, Tony. Go ahead. Go on, Tony.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Otherwise, it just remains kind of an idea and a fairy tale. Hi, Sue. The more we are vigilant to frequency shifts and are able to recalibrate to stay in the light, I like that word, recalibrate, the more we are able to encourage others by example and thus strengthen global unity and expand consciousness in the light. Yeah, and I was feeling that too, you know, when you were talking about acceptance before, Colin. It's like we just infuse that energy into those around us without even trying, by simply just being ourselves. And that's how we gradually, bit by bit, shwaya shwaya, as they say in Egypt, start to help that critical mass, you know, that then will enable more of a physical and obvious shift to happen in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Sue. Funny, Sue, because I had a thought if it had been possible to invite Sue on with us tonight, actually, onto StreamYard, because you can see Sue's take on everything. I definitely believe about being vigilant to the frequency shifts. We've got to be. That comes with me as while this change is taking place and the energy what's flying around like it is, we must protect our energies and I must protect our mind. So we're going to be vigilant to it. And I think there's a few people. I'm going to go off tactic a little bit. So as an example, have you heard about this fog? This what's going around at the moment? There's a certain fog, and there's kind of, well, they're calling it smart dust, some people, funny enough. And in the areas where it's present, people are coming down with colds and flu-like symptoms, etc. So it's really interesting, and I think staying vigilant, because I thought I've been seeing it the last week about this fog, and I thought if I see any fog out there, I'm not even going out the door. And yet you know,
you think it's from trails?
Pardon?
Do you think it's from trails?
Definitely from something. It's definitely unusual. All the signs are that it's unusual. Now it's either a setup and they've put it out there to add to the confusion. But from what I've seen, a lot of the videos seem to be coming from ordinary, everyday people, lots of different places around the world. That would maybe take some orchestrating on their side, but still wouldn't surprise me if they did it. But seems interesting because it's when they're putting lights onto it, it almost appears like snow particles, but it's not. And in some cases, it's even like snow particles, small drops. When they put a light onto it, when they're shining the light on it, it looks like it's snow coming down, fine snow, but it's not. So,
I saw just one someone's pool, and on their pool it had sort of clumped together in these like clouds, like floating along on the pool.
saw the same one. That was white. Yeah.
Interesting. All I know is that I know nothing. I know nothing.
That's
But you know, they're spraying here now in lovely Luxor. They're doing the skies. So yeah.
Oh, that's kind of them.
So I don't know if they're benign or not. Hi Zena. Are we often thinking and need to be in the moment? Yeah. Yeah.
I think you got your answers, Zena. Go on, Tjoni. Yeah.
Well, let me think about that. Yeah.
So sorry.
This is my answer.
Yeah. You could leave that last one up if you like for a minute, Ava, if that's okay. Thank you so much, because we just want to, and then we'll come to Mark. So, are we often overthinking and need to be in the moment? Wow, what a question. Brilliant question, Zena. Most definitely. I'm going to have to be careful what I say here, but I'm still going to say it. I don't even know why I made them statements. I think possibly the biggest issue humanity has is that we think rather than be in the moment. As that them last Well, them last 4 words you've used, Zena, I think should be planted in on every school board around the planet for every child to see it. Be in the moment, because that would stop them overthinking and being concerned and worried. We're projecting our mind into the future. We're carrying the past with our thoughts. We start thinking, will this be right if I do it this way? Shall I go in that direction? There's an overload of thinking what we do. And also, we're loaded up with so many distractions at the same time. So we've got a clash of thought particles going on in our awareness. And in effect, what I can't say what we should be doing. I can only say from my point of view, if we can empty our awareness completely of any thoughts, there is only one thing left. Them last 4 words, we will be in the moment, because there's nothing else in that emptiness of space within us. So, and I think the letting go process, what people do, the healing process, what people do, the shadow work, what people do, is actually to remove a mass of thoughts. So they've got a clear space within their awareness, and they feel lighter and brighter, and then they can get closer to being in the moment.
I agree. And then look at what I was kind of touching on before, talking about just releasing attachment to various constructs of what we think we're in energetically and spiritually and all of that kind of stuff. So that we're not taking in new information as we do come more online within ourselves, and sort of setting that against the bar of what we think that things are. That we can take information in anew, without trying to put it in a bunch of pigeonholes and constructs that we've taken on from other theologies and things. So be in the moment. I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, if I may add, Tjoni, because on this journey of whatever it is we call it, I'll call it spirituality for a moment. On this journey of spirituality, what's taking place, we become very interesting, isn't it? Because if we're existing in a 3D world within our perception, we're relatively protected. We're in this bubble, we can't see outside into the 4th dimension and so on. We can, obviously, but in that space we don't. But on the spiritual path, as soon as the mind or consciousness expands, it has a sensation, it blasts wide open. And then we become like sponges. We're just absorbing spiritual teaching, spiritual information, like spiritual knowledge. We're just this complete sponge, and then we draw it in, and then we can start overthinking that. We can overthink spiritual teachings, never mind ordinary thoughts, what we're having. And then, so it's important that we have that daily or regular routine where we can still our mind and get into the moment, and that kind of dissolves. I'm a big believer that stillness is a phenomenal healer, and when we get into that kind of nice space within us, it doesn't have to be stillness, it can just be a meditative state, then the mind, the thoughts subside, and clarity starts coming. But those thoughts can be transformed and healed as well. So just wanted to throw that in, Tjoni. I thought I'd put something else. Brilliant stuff. Oh, Mark's on. Hi, Mark. Lovely to see you. This guy, just before we go any further, I'm going to say he had a brilliant experience yesterday, but it was very close to the bone, literally close to the bone. What was this? I've had to totally surrender to many things, and the right things seem to be happening for me. Over to you, Tjoni.
Over to me. Well, I mean, it's all in the surrender, isn't it? I feel like it's taken me 52 years to figure out how to surrender, and now all of a sudden the things are just working as they should. So I love that. I think that's just perfect. Surrender to me just allows you to slip into the natural tide of the cosmos, and it will just carry us. It will carry us no matter what we put into it. When we put in effort and struggle and you know, swimming upstream, that's exactly what it will give.
Yeah.
When we just let ourselves go with the flow and just chill out and just allow what came to me as the little white bears, the glitter of the prana that just, you know, moves all of the resources that we need right into our space when we chill with it. The magic happens. That's beautiful. I'm really happy that the right things are happening to Mark. But what was so close to the bone? I kind of missed that bit.
Oh, well, if I'm going to ask him if it's okay to tell the story, and if he says yes, then I can tell the story.
All right.
If he's still here, hopefully he's still here, Mark. And then if you are, I'll tell the story. Or you can write it out yourself. So.
All right.
Hi,
Sue.
Hi, Sue again.
Do you think it's possible?
Tjoni?
Oh no, your turn. My turn. I'll just go. Do you think that it's possible that often many get hooked into the trying to move forward, which is often a continual external seeking, chasing, rather than being self-caring and self-loving, letting go and being in the stillness and allowing the process to unfold while holding focus along the light and natural expansion of consciousness? What do you think, Colin?
Oh, most definitely. Absolutely 100%. People do, with respect to them, they do get hooked because in this trying business, we're kind of, again, that comes to grasping. We're grasping something, we're attempting to get somewhere. And in that, we're controlling it. And then once we do that, we've got the grasping, attachment, there's all these things start kicking in that trying. I'm trying to get from A to B. I'm trying to get to that position. And what we're doing, what the mind does at that moment is just simply place hurdles in front of it, what don't need to be there. They're not necessary. And which goes back to what Mark John was saying, surrender. It's like, just let go. Let go, and the cosmos, life itself, will ripen and bring and materialize in front of us that what we require or what's required for us in harmony with our own energy and vibrations and frequencies in that moment, and the harmonies and vibrations of life itself. But in that trying, people are people trip themselves up in that process instead of just sitting there in the acceptance and just letting that light naturally expand by itself. Really interesting, brilliant comments. Yes. Oh, Mark, thank you so much. He's got a brilliant sense of humour. I watch his post. Mark, I'm going to tell everybody, he's got a fantastic sense of humour. But it's not for everybody. Anyway, so he had a strong feeling, I believe it was yesterday. He was going somewhere and he was about to get in his car, and he had a very strong feeling, powerful thought. I can't remember his exact words. That something specific, almost maybe potentially negative was going to happen, where he may even take his transition to the other side. It came over him, and I think it was part intuition and part possibly one of his spiritual guides bringing that energy around him in order for him to kind of maybe even pause just for a moment. But he had that kind of impending doom type energy in that moment, and he got in his car and he's made his way driving down a country lane, and this car come overtaking another car and come hurtling towards him head on, and he literally avoided it by seconds.
Wow.
By seconds. So I should imagine that shut you up a little bit, Mark. Well, I hope it didn't. That was his story. But the interesting bit is how Mark described the energetic experience prior to getting into the car. And then for me, it raised a lot of questions, because I think definitely his spiritual guide and his own psychic awareness, his own intuition was kind of sensing into that distance that there was going to be an impending energy present itself. At the same time, it's brilliant stuff, because it tells us that just how expansive our awareness can be. So imagine, it's almost like I have this picture where it's like the auric field is limitless, so it can detect anything in its environment. So let's say we're living in the same household, people thinking it's roughly the same, or one partner will say, stop thinking what I'm thinking, get out of my head, because they're in tune with each other, because they're contained in that space. You go into a centre where there's the same group of people, all with a common cause, they're contained, so there's a common theme of thought, and they pick up each other's thoughts and feelings. I think we have that capacity globally, that our awareness is infinitely expansive, and the only thing what stops us from actually sensing everything else, everything what's coming up or around us, is we're carrying too much baggage in our mind, and that prevents the clarity. So I've experienced stuff like this on many occasions. But so we need to go on. Yeah, tell me too, Tony.
Sorry? Yeah, we could talk all night as always, but we've been going for over an hour.
It's true. Right then.
And I've got someone out there waiting for a meeting. So thanks, Mark, and I'm really glad that you made that. You're clearly supposed to stick around. We need to be back in our hearts and less in our heads. I have a mobile full of apps. It keeps me distracted and distracts my power. I also have a minimalist mobile with phone, text, email on it, and no apps. I feel better by not using my phone full of apps as I feel more present. Yeah, I agree, and I'm actually going to get one of the non-smart phones, so that can be my phone, and then my smartphone is actually just my mini computer, so I can keep them separate. So I agree. I think we all need a bit of a digital detox.
Right. I'm conscious now that you've got to get yourself off. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay on. If anybody wants to chuck any questions, if you've got to get off, Tony, thank you so very much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank
Always
you.
such a pleasure to be chatting to you, and thanks so much, Eva, and thank you so much to everybody who joined and for all your gorgeous contributions and questions.
Thank you, Tony. Lots of love, and hopefully we'll speak to you very soon. I'm speeding up because I know you've got your next meeting. So take care. Thank you for joining us. So to everybody else, I'm going to stay on, guys, and I'm going to do some questions. If anybody's got any questions, and we'll bring this. Let's have a look, Lynn. Oh, sorry. If we can just go back to Mark John's last statement, Ava, and then I can see it properly. We need to be back in our hearts and less in our heads. I have a mobile full of apps. Keeps me distracted and distracts my power. I also have a minimalist mobile with phone, text, emails on, and no apps. I feel better by not using my phone full of apps as I feel more present. Brilliant, Mark. I just think, to be quite honest, we've just got to be careful, haven't we? We're getting caught out by technology and it's bombarding us, and what you said, it's constant distraction. I'm kind of fortunate because I put my phone out of the way, and I'm lucky if I answer 2 or 3 messages a week. I just won't entertain it. And there's hardly any apps because I don't know how to use them anyway, so that's beneficial for me. And that gives me, frees up so much more time by not having all those aspects technologically. To be quite honest, I would probably not even use Facebook if Menorca Consciousness Group wasn't using it as a means of reaching people. So totally agree, Mark. And I hope your energies have settled since yesterday. Lynn, hi Lynn, thanks for staying on, everybody. I've found that I seem to be very sensitive to things, people, and what is said. I've never been like that before, and it is difficult to deal with. Well, it sounds like some layers have come off, Lynn, because we know when we peel some of the layers off and we let go of certain things, and as the change takes place, that's spontaneously changing our sensitivity. We're becoming quite highly sensitive to the frequencies because of this ascension process. So I'm really not surprised at this whatsoever. and being sensitive, like exactly what you said, to things, people, and what's said, spoken words. It's almost as if we can sense the frequencies of what's being said and spoken, and they can jar on our auric field. They can jar on us. So I've always having to learn to understand and cope with all this. What I've done is again, like we said earlier, I kind of enter that stillness within, because it gives me that protection of the bombardment of those frequencies. And even though people are saying things what, you know, are obviously meaningful in their way, and possibly don't even mean any harm on many occasions, we can still be affected by them. So we just got to protect our energies and feel how protect our mind. And of course, spirit will protect us, but we have to go through that process of feeling and sensing things without closing off and closing down our energies. Because if we close our energies, then we're in trouble. But we can be protected in certain ways, in different ways, Lynn. So I get this. I really get this so much. Just on hi Chanda, just on another point, if I might add to it for everybody, with the sensitivity at the moment, we've got this what's called a vibration change. We undergo what's called a vibration change, and basically what it is as the waves of the cosmos come through and the peaks and troughs are taking place, and we're walking through that space, through that center point, our mind, our consciousness is raising up and dropping and raising up and dropping, like we were saying earlier. And when we raise up, we go on this huge high and expansion. And when we come back down, when our mind descends, then we go into this like the V shape, the pit of the V shape at the bottom. And what happens is we come close down. And with a vibration change, when a wave comes in, it sweeps through the auric field. And it's a wave of energy, it's a wave of light particles and many other aspects, ethereal energy. And it sweeps through our auric field. And because our auric field is a mass of energy in particles, atoms, and subatomic aspects, filled with thought energy, filled with emotions, as the wave comes through, it triggers something as it gets closer to this alignment of our chakras. And then we kind of have this change take place. We wobble. It's like, because what's happening is we're moving to a new frequency, a new vibration. So when a vibration change occurs, we find that we may feel on a high or we may feel low. Our diet changes, the food what we normally like is out the window. We want our taste buds want something else, etc., etc. Sleepless nights, or restless sleep, and we're overactive or underactive, whichever one it is. But one thing which is common is during a vibration change, we become hypersensitive, and our awareness it becomes like tuning forks. So when somebody says something, it can kind of cut through us and be very sharp and feel sharp. That's not the intention what's coming from the external. That's because we're undergoing that vibration change and our frequency is altering. In effect, it's becoming more heightened. So we're ascending this ascension process, what everybody's talking about. Part of the ascension process is the heightened sensitivity. We're moving to a higher frequency of awareness. We're moving away from the lower dense frequencies of the 3D aspect, including physically, mentally, emotionally, all those different frequencies, what match those aspects, and we're ascending. So we're in that middle point, and we can be really sensitive. Vibration change can last anything from 2 hours to 6 weeks. And all we can do is try and get into that stillness and ride the wave, maintain some degree of alignment and stability within our energies, even if it means pulling away from some of the activity what we normally do, or pulling away from some of the people we normally meet with. Just pull away just to protect ourselves for a short while until that wave has passed through, and then that's it. We're kind of fresh again. We feel a bit more clearer, etc. It helps our communication and link to the spirit world and celestial beings and moving through the dimensions and channeling and trying. It benefits. Every vibration change benefits all spiritual aspects. But it's a process in its own right, and we can become hypersensitive. So I hope that helps. Then Zena, hello. Can we change those negative intuition feelings that Mark John experienced to transcend the negative happenings? Can we change those negative intuition feelings? Well, really good question, Zena. My understanding of this is we're transformers. We are by nature, our inherent sense of being in the cosmos is as transformers of energy. Now, we're never taught this bit. So if you imagine we've got energy around us and our auric field is like antennas, and it feels and senses all the aspects within any environment what we put ourselves within. We get fed the information from that environment through our auric field because of all those massive senses. And as that energy comes into our field of energy, what we refer to as the aura, as it enters the field of energy, it starts getting transformed and transmutated. So we can transform virtually any aspect, what we may refer to as negative. And that's what we're actually doing at this moment. All of us on the planet, we're transforming energy into light. We're using the word light more because that's possibly, at the moment, that's the number one thing. Oh, can you just leave that up? Because I was just going to keep going with that. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. So I just need to read it again so I'll get the full picture of it. Can we change those negative intuition feelings? So, and then it takes us, so that's the aspect with energies, transforming energy. So the answer is yes, we can, most definitely. And really, humanity itself should grab this spiritual teaching and know that they are transformers of energy. And a lot of people would feel a lot better if they utilize that ability. Then we go to the intuition. Now, intuition it's a magical thing. Because the way you've turned this, you kind of prompted me to explain a couple of bits here. So we've just spoke about the negative a little bit, and then let's go to intuition, and then go to feelings. Now, intuition. No, let's reverse this. Feelings are a part of our psychic center, so we can put feelings with our instinct. When we have a gut feeling, that's our instinct. We feel it in the pit of our stomach. So we're sensing energy and we're getting a gut feeling about it, and then it often shows itself and plays out. Well, that's the psychic center, is where our instinct operates from. Intuition is more to do with the only way I'm going to describe this is higher frequency of our awareness or our consciousness. Intuition, and again we're back to spiritual teachings. Intuition is first thought. It's nothing else. It's not a second, third, or fourth thought. As soon as we've had a thought, that's intuition itself. So every thought we're having is intuition. And what we tend to do is we step into it and we start questioning it. Is my intuition correct? We can say there's different frequencies, most definitely, to intuition. What we're trying to achieve at the minute is move all the distractions out of our awareness of mind. And then we will be operating at what's called pure intuition, where our first thought we will trust implicitly, yeah. And we'll put that first thought with a feeling, and if it feels correct, then we will put it with an action. So what we're trying to get to is a point of pure intuition with that pure feeling and putting it into action. Then therefore our actions will be pure. So this is really interesting what you brought up here, Zena. I really appreciate the fact you've done that. So is that? I need to go back to because I want to finish the end of that question. Sorry. Oh, let's have a look at my John's friend to transcend the negative. Yeah. Oh, okay. We've been. Yeah. It was basically it's happened. That what Mark John experienced was it's like a forewarning. That energy packed around him to make sure he sensed that awareness of that energy. And often when we get that feeling, it has to penetrate through some of the aspects what's within our auric field. So it can feel a lot more negative when we receive it. When we receive it in a slightly cleaner or clearer way, and again, the more we clear ourselves, the more intuitively, instinctively we'll become as beings. And we won't feel the major impact, but we'll go with that thought and that feeling. So thank you. We can move on to that next one if you like. So is that our whole intention? Yes. Dina, our intention is to be pure, intuitive beings of light. I've got to be careful when we say it, because I don't want to put a ceiling or limit on who and what we are, because we know there's so much more to us. The closest we can get to, as far as our whole intention, I believe our intention is to be just merely be present in this plane of existence. And by being present, our light is doing what it needs to do. And it goes back to what Sue was saying earlier, trying. If we try to do something, we're imputating, and we can get in the way. Whereas we get our whole intention, we can say we're here and being present, to put the light present, that will bring about the change and move us to the fourth and fifth and sixth dimension, and so on. And in that, we can have pure intuition and operate from that frequency, so to speak. But just to add something else, we probably have to start recognizing that we cannot define and term who and what we are at the moment. We know we're celestial or cosmic beings. We know, and I'm going to use a couple of words here, which gets bantered about in Minorca Consciousness Group sessions often, form and formless. So we appear as a certain form, and yet we are formless. And the way we can express that is according to perception. So if I see another person in a physical form, that's because I'm perceiving that person in that physical form. If I perceive that person as formless, and yet I am aware there's an awareness in front of me, then that's what I'm seeing. I'm recognizing and accepting there's an awareness present. And it's only when I perceive the physical form that then I go, okay, I'm seeing the form of that person. So brilliant stuff. Is that our whole intention? Intuitive beings, really, like on a very, very pure level of intuition. A lot of people use the word intuition with respect, and they get it confused with instinct, but the two are entirely different frequencies of our own awareness. So brilliant questions. I feel yesterday's experience protected me. Yeah, yeah, Mark, most definitely. Absolutely agree with that one. Yet also may have taught the other drivers to slow down or be careful. I had the feeling that I was going to face my exit out of this world. So again, it may be by exit at a future time, if that makes sense. Yeah, I would personally, I would not put that experience with the future, to be honest, Mark. I just won't do it, because I've experienced this stuff like this loads of times. And it's almost as if we can just keep this up as well, please. I feel yesterday, just because there's a couple of points, definitely protected you, because I think that's why spiritual guides come around us. It's funny, isn't it? Because there's a lot in this. This tells us about seeing the future, predicting. This tells us about seeing the future. Obviously, spiritual beings can see the future. Now, in that, if part of our intuition or our expanding awareness has sensed that our mind is going to be in that position, our awareness or our body is going to be in that location under them circumstances with that situation, then we're seeing the future as well, not by visual, but we're sensing it. So in conjunction with spirit, and the intuition is wrapped in there somewhere, and our instinct is in there somewhere. So it's a bit of several factors playing out there, but definitely the protection bit is there. I like the bit, it's like taught the other drive. Hopefully, I'm hoping that could be a good one for him. And you was actually used as a means of doing that, even though it's like, don't use me like that again, sort of thing. And yeah, when I read that you thought you was going to take your transition, that was incredible. And And that's how deep and profound that feeling goes when it gets put on us. It's like a really deep impending frequency of doom, and we've got to be exceptionally careful and mindful. I'm really pleased that you've come on tonight, Mark, because I think maybe I can open this up a little bit. In so much that we're probably going to be facing more of these experiences as we move forward, because this is part of the opening up process. One of the first things I can say is the more we're in a state of sensitivity with spirit and spiritual energies, the more open we are, the more they can get in. If we're closed, it's like closing the front door to spirit, to a neighbor or family. They're going to be banging on the door, and if we don't let them in, that's it. And they might be trying to warn us or something. So thankfully, you was open sufficiently, and your mind was clear enough and ascended enough for your field of energy to be open, so spirit could get in to get this energy moving, so they could give you that sensation and experience of those energies to warn you. And I think this is going to be a care on a broader scale as we go into the next few years, where the more people are open and expanded, they'll start to experience these sort of situations and circumstances. And they are beneficial, very beneficial, because different things play out on different frequencies. If we was to go to another frequency and look at this from a spiritual, kind of, don't want to sound it, but elevated sense of perception and with some degree of clarity, and watching yourself and watching the other driver and the circumstances, we could see there may have been a family around what could have been involved in that. Somebody else could have got damaged. There could have been several factors. There could have been a group of souls from the other side, spiritual guides and family members involved in this full scene, helping prevent and orchestrating and helping yourself, the other driver, and anyone else in that vicinity what may have been affected by this in so many areas. And it's like a ripple effect, isn't it? So thank you so much for sharing, Mark. So I've had spirit guide shout at me a warning which prevented a potentially serious situation on the road on more than one occasion. Thanks for sharing this one, Sue. Yeah, I like that bit, shout. So it's like, so we get the message. Yeah. Well, I can tell you what, there was an incident where I was driving on an evening and in the town, and several moments prior to it, maybe 10-15 minutes prior to that, a spirit just put the thought in my mind, here it comes. I'm like, what on earth is this? Literally 5 to 10 minutes later, I was stopped at a junction roundabout, pulling out. It's dark. Went across the junction, went across the roundabout, and ran straight into another car. What was coming from the side? Never even saw them. Which I believe, couldn't prove. Which I believe, they come flying up from the right and had no lights on. And that's why I didn't see it in the darkness, and the lighting, the blade lighting around the roundabout, didn't see it, and just literally smashed into the side of it. But Spirit said to me prior to that, here it comes. So we're blessed to get lots of different warnings, aren't we? So I had that happen to me, Sue. And they turned the steering wheel too, something I will never forget, and it will be forever thankful for. Yeah, thanks for sharing this, Lynn. Yeah. Angels by our side. Yeah, spiritual beings. So any more questions? Anybody? Chanda, thank you. Hi, Chanda. When one embraces acceptance, it's important to be careful not to become lazy and stop taking action. Finding the middle way is crucial. Well, Chanda, thank you for that, because the middle way is, I don't want to say it's the number one path, but it's very close to it. As soon as we step out of the middle way, we're part of divide and division, because we're going into duality then. We're making the decisions go one way or take one side or the other. The middle way is always the best way. An example can be when two people are having a debate, conversation, whatever it is, and we may agree and understand each person's position on that situation, and view and opinion, and yet we may have our own opinion completely, which is completely different from either one of them. And I think that's the one, that both sides are correct, but so is the middle way. If the middle way is the purest one, which it normally nearly always is, that's the route we should take. And as far as embracing acceptance and not become lazy and stop taking action, I think I understand what you're trying to say there. For me, acceptance is too long to go into here, but in its simple form is just a pure frequency of allowing, or not allowing, we haven't got the right to allow, but letting everything be what it is without controlling it. And in that, we can still go into action. So, and acceptance again is like everything else. There's many different frequencies to acceptance, all according to each individual perception. So some people can accept to a certain point, others can accept to another degree. Some people can accept certain things, others can't accept certain things, so on and so on. But I believe that there's inside us, in that light, that inner light within each of us, there's pure acceptance about everything and all things, including not just ourselves, but everything in the environment around us, what the soul is inhabiting, so to speak. Thank you, Chanda. Well, I think we'll almost draw it to a close, if that's okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for Tjoni again. Absolutely love having Tjoni on and chatting. Some really good points. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and your comments. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be doing more of these. I think there's going to be, as far as I know, we will be doing a question and answer session, hopefully in the next week or two, where people can jump on and fire away with the questions, and we'll see. We'll bring spirit in, hopefully, if they wish to do it, and we can take some questions. So, and then we've got this. This is this Saturday. We'll be running a course on mediumship. I think it's 11 till 5 or something like that. We'll be looking at the different aspects. This is to kind of help improve or enhance or assist people with their mediumship, looking at different frequencies and areas of mediumship. It'll be a beautiful day with beautiful minds, but your mediumship will definitely be improved by coming to this. And it's open to all levels. Obviously, it's open to everybody. It's not about levels. It's open to everybody if anybody wants to join. You can find us at Menorca Consciousness Group. Just quickly, if anybody is interested, if anybody's wishes, there's a book now finished, complete, 8 as an Index Spiritualism, a guide to psychic and spiritual development. That's available. Please get in touch with us or check out the website. And it's got a massive information. It's got some pretty pictures in it as well. So on behalf of our spiritual guides, all of us, they come first as far as I'm concerned. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Rhea. Thanks, Sue. Thanks, Mark. Thanks to everybody for joining us. Y Isaacs. And hopefully we'll see you very soon. Amazing. Thank you sincerely. I'm always lost for words at this moment. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye. Lots of love. Bye-bye.